Gather round me, children, I'll tell you the news. Don't worry about the names or dates, you already know it's true. Your doctor hates your baby, the prime minister's a ghost, and all them folks are sailing here 'cause they're in love with boats. Superfoods can save us from all our evil sin. JFK and Elvis own a bar in Wisconsin. And vaccinations were created by the CIA to steal votes from Bernie Sanders and turn your babies gay. So click the link you think you like and get tooled for a fight against those lefty fascist communists who are leaning too far right.
Hi and welcome to Not Another Fake Newscast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jerry. We're here today for an interview with Dr. Jennifer Jones.
Hello.
Jennifer is somebody who has a PhD. She has an academic of sports media, citizen journalism and internet. She is involved in Hackers Scotland, founder of Media for Comms and director GMAC Film. Thanks for coming, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So as always, you can find us on www.notanotherfakenewscast.com, and we're on @PGMcast on Twitter and Facebook.
That was the worst way to say that I've ever heard in my entire life, Jimmy. That was quality. We're also on Patreon at PGMcast, and we've got our Discord that you can get if you go into our Facebook group. And the same usual stuff.
Yeah. So Jennifer, do you want to tell us a wee bit about your kind of background and what's brought you here today?
Yeah, okay, so for the last 10 years I've been looking at the phenomenon of citizen journalism, mainly at sporting events, but really interested in how social media in the last 10 years has democratised, potentially, or affected how we interact with media and how we make media, how we consume media. When I started this journey as a kind of naive PhD student, I was interested in how, I think a lot of us were interested in how social media and mobile devices was allowing people who weren't traditionally journalists or traditionally have access to become a journalist, to be able to have a voice. So activists, people that were interested in gaining access to events, to report on activity that might not be seen in the media. I guess at the time as well, there was the media was impacted by changes in technology, new media, comment is free, all this sort of stuff. And I've spent 10 years looking at this. I've spent a lot of time working with groups, particularly around media education and literacy. So how do you get people that maybe aren't represented fairly in the media, like maybe people with addiction recovery, or folk from kind of working class backgrounds that don't have a voice, or community groups that have positive news stories that maybe in the decline of local news aren't being represented on the beat because journalists are getting fed press releases, cuts to newsrooms and all that sort of kind of stuff's related. However, in the last year or so, I guess not my position's changed. I used to be a big advocate for alternative media. I was very like, why are we not being represented? It's not fair. It's not fair in local media. They're not covering the things that are really good in communities. But actually, the shift with Trump and Brexit and the kind of rise of fake news, and I'm not really a fan of that the title, but fake news, misinformation, disinformation.
You're on the wrong podcast.
I'm on the wrong podcast. But fake news is such a broad topic, that's why there's a podcast about it. But yeah, this idea around media literacies, and people are now quite aware of the fact that social media is enabling them to have a voice. That's for sure. Everybody and their dad is on the internet now, and the internet used to be quite a place where you would have these discussions, and now we've got people.
It was free before.
It was free.
I'd quite like to get @Ibdis Da on Twitter if it's not already been taken, just because it'd be a good one.
It's like before, you used to be on and the Da wasn't there chipping in with his opinion, right? And you had opinion of Nicola Sturgeon or Ruth Davidson and all that. But now the Da's there, and the Da's politicised, and the Da's, in the conversation, like the collective Da. But that's like one of those things we have to kind of adapt ourselves. I'm a big massive geek. I've been online since like 1999. I've had a blog. My mum's a programmer. I've been on this space, and I kind of feel all these Da's are now in my space, and
You're going to have to get a collective Da t-shirt.
Like the collective da's like the royal we.
Yeah. It's a da. Actually, I have a yin yang here, so this is another story. But I have a yin yang. There's a da, the internet da, that comes in, it butts in. You know, old fun facts would be somebody that would talk a lot about the old da. But there's also the kind of the ma that shares the missing dog posters, and that's the yin yang of the internet.
I like, you usually find it's the one that shares like a Britain's first post without realising there's a Britain's first post.
Yeah.
And it's really under, like, really lightly veiled racist, but still racist.
Yeah.
Just like Muslims and poppies and stuff, and then they share it. Like,
yeah, my mum asked me yesterday, she asked me, oh, do you know, it's that time of year where my friends are sharing stuff about Muslims and poppies. Do you get that problem? I was like, no.
It's
like, yeah, so, but there's that sort of wave of people that are online now that weren't online 10 years ago. We have to kind of adapt the internet is maturing in that regard, but also social media is maturing.
Old guys that just don't understand things like trans issues, so they just use the wrong words all the time.
I also just find, I feel like I've got a bit of bitterness towards them as well, because they didn't have to sit through the days of dial-up. You know, they've swooped in right at the end where it's a piece of piss.
I hone my skills in MSN fucking Messenger. I don't think like they have no right to now come onto my fucking Facebook chat or my Facebook timeline and tell me about, you know, their mad racist views.
They didn't sit on dial-up for 3-4 hours trying to get the latest Idlewild signal.
No, they told you weren't allowed in dial-up. They came in and they unplugged you and went, right, you go to bed.
We should actually start them like that. Anybody over a certain age, as soon as they come onto Facebook, should just be like, ESL. just start putting the ground up and build them back up.
No, you're totally right. The reason why I did a PhD in the internet, like internet studies, I get mocked for that, but internet studies, I was interested in actually becoming good at winning arguments on the internet. That was like literally my motivation was, right, fed up of forums and people kind of super modding you out or something, or all the politics, I went, I'm going to get a PhD on the internet and then I'll come back to this.
If you wanted to get right good at arguing, you had the fortune that you're also a female, so you could have just went on 4chan and said, I'm a female, and then you would have argued every single moment, every single day for months and months and months. Yeah,
just use your profile picture and go, look at you, you've got silly glasses.
Well, that's it.
So I think that it's fair to say, I'm reading this a wee bit, I might be reading between the lines here, but it's fair to say that you've kind of moved from a sort of open and positive attitude towards alternative media, and you've kind of moved, you became a bit more cynical over the past 10 years.
Cynical, critical is a nicer word. However, I found myself delivering a workshop during the summer, and normally my kind of like setting people up for the workshop around citizen journalism, so I'm kind of going, I can teach you a couple of skills. It means that the content you produce for your mobile can be local media ready, so therefore if you do the workshop, this was actually the young farmers, and they were young farmers workshop.
Young farmers on social media.
So but the thing was, right, I was at the night before, I was at this kind of thing at the Royal Conservatoire, and it was full of art students who were presenting these sort of things they'd designed in a couple of days, and there were crowdfunders and all that, and I was like, great. Things they wanted to set up tents in Glasgow for people to chill out in, and I thought, and I'm watching somebody from
toilets instantly.
Well, that's what I thought. I was like, people from London.
People just running through, kicking them.
Yeah,
and shit.
or design students are like, we could Glasgow will chill out more if we put tents in with mood music, and I was like, right, hen.
So I go and take drugs in that tent.
Then I did that, and then I went to this thing of the young farmers, and I mean, I'm from Ayrshire, so I have my perceptions about what a young farmers meet-up might be like, but this was a European...
We're from Ayrshire, we've got the same perception.
We've got a lot in common, being from the Shires, so they actually had people from Europe, and then I watched this video of a guy from Ayrshire who did a crowdfunder to actually keep his dad's farm open, but actually look into doing organic milk and go, like, basically fuck Tesco, we're going to do great stuff. And I found myself sitting there going, they've got it, right? So they've actually doing it better than all these design techie people that are going, oh, this is lovely and conceptual, and I'm going, this is a guy that needs to do something to keep his farm open because he's got a young family, and this is creative and this is clever. And I found myself kind of going, do you know what, I'm kind of like teaching them how to suck eggs, or whatever the expression is, but I thought, do you know what, I'm not wanting to enable any more people to go, I'm alternative media, fuck the journalists. I actually am finding myself increasingly on the journalist side, and my position from my research has been I've always observed citizen journalists who have managed to get into newsrooms. I got into the Olympics in Vancouver on a fake media pass. So I am, when I talk about sports media, I'm interested in how people can get into news conferences with fake media, but they're not doing the job of reporting on the sport. They're kind of going, I got into a news conference on a pass. Yeah. But Meta, it's not really them going, what are you offering to this? Yeah. So therefore, I've decided to take a step back and go, okay, I need to know more about what a journalist needs, because they're the ones that if they stick to the code of ethics and stuff, their idea is to be reporting the truth, and they can't report on things unless there's elements of truth and it's being cross-referenced in different sources, and they work very quickly because of the nature of the press, but also the nature that we need more and more journalists nowadays rather than more than people that are trying to wing it into Hampden,
Everyone's a journalist these days, isn't it?
Well, I think we had Mike Small on the show recently, and he was kind of talking along the same lines as you about alternative media and about old media, and basically sort of saying we need to be aiming to pick the best parts of both. You know, there are things that mainstream media and print journalism and stuff can learn from alternative media, but similarly there's a lot of things, like if you're going back to basics and you're doing journalism as it's supposed to be done, that's the model that we should be taking forward in alternative media.
Absolutely. And I think just going back and learning how to write 350 words for the Scotsman, and it took me 12 hours, and I can't spend 12 hours writing 350 words, but that's the problem with doing a PhD, right? I'm proud of what I did, but I took that on 8 years ago, did it part-time, and it was very difficult with my mental health and everything to keep doing something like that. Academia has the luxury, I don't want to say this because people will be like, oh, we don't have the luxury of time. You've got way more time to think about something than a journalist has to do it, but they have to be accurate, and they have to have the facts, they have to get an interview, and they will doorstop somebody to get that interview, and there's that drive. And if you have a healthy media landscape, if there's more than one journalist on a patch, people can compete for the story, and then you start to get dialogue, and you start to realise that it's a dangerous place to be where we don't have a local media that's rich and full of people that are on a beat. I mean, I just came from Dundee. Dundee is like an anomaly. Dundee's got 2 local daily newspapers and Sundays, so you've got more journalists per square mile anywhere in Scotland. So there's literally you yawn in Dundee, you're in the paper. It's like they're actually competing for stories, whereas coming from here there's one weekly, and it's there's like 3 or 4 journalists, and a lot of them are pals with the Tory councillors, so it's really difficult.
Is that not on the same? Is that maybe here's not one of them, but is that not part of the same group?
A Daily Record.
So it's exactly the same.
So and that impacts. I'm interested in all this sort of stuff, but I'm starting to get a clearer picture, even just learning what it's like to construct a story in terms of the inverted triangle, and making sure you've got the sources, and actually picking up the phone and going, I'm running this story, I'm going to do it. So how do you feel about that? That's
to reply,
yes,
which is one thing that's sorely lacking for a lot of alternative media.
Yeah, it's cowardly, I'd think, a lot of the alternative media, because this right to reply is really important, because even the Daily Mail give people a right to reply. How it's framed is, we could talk about that, but there's 100 people have talked about that. But the fact is, if they're going to run a story on Philip Green, they need the right to reply. You have to. So we don't have that. Somebody just spilling their brains in an 8,000 word blog post isn't journalism. Yeah. And I would argue before, it'd be like, oh yeah, but it's alternative media. It's like, I wouldn't give it the oxygen to call it journalism, because it doesn't have the same craft.
No, it's an opinion piece. It's always an opinion piece. I mean, not always, but a lot of the time it's an opinion piece. There's stuff that we've done before. We try and contact people before we discuss. If they then don't come back to us, then
Yeah,
but you're giving them the opportunity.
But give them the opportunity, yeah, certainly.
But you've got background in you've done having that background in journalism. I think we've got a real media literacy problem, and it's not just from how do you know a source that you read online is good or bad or credible. It's like people they fundamentally don't understand what journalism is, and even then I'll put my hands up. I did a PhD about it, and it isn't until I've actually flipped this side and went, oh, right, that's what journalism is. I've been kind of theorising over here, actually quite scared of it. I think people they respect journalism in a roundabout way because they still obsess about it. Like, I went on Radio Scotland to talk about community journalism alongside a guy from the Newspaper Society, but who's a guy, Robertson, in the morning, he tagged me on a Twitter post, and all day my Twitter account was like, Brexit Broadcasting Corporation, biased broadcasting because I was tagged in a post about media. So like, but they watch it and they listen to it and they obsess about it. Because they're watching it more than the people that maybe just dip in and out of Radio 4 or BBC Scotland when they're on the drive. So it's this sort of like, we hate the mainstream media, but we can't stop reading the mainstream media, and every time that Herald publishes something, let's jump on that and let's dissect it, because obviously we want to discredit it as quickly as possible because my blog is better than your blog. It's that sort of mentality.
I guarantee when they're looking for the football scores, they're probably on BBC Sport as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, like, I know I can suffer from a bit of the bias that you're talking about, in that, especially the BBC, I give the BBC quite a hard time online, but it's only because I do find that...
You believe they should be held at a high standard?
I believe that.
Yes.
I believe that. I mean, actually, the reason that I give them a hard time is not on the merits of what they do. It's in the fact that they do a lot of stuff that, when I look at it on face value, it's not non-partisan. Do you know what I mean? They have a very partisan stance and a lot of stuff, and people will defend it to its death. And it's like, well, no, like they. Yes, I was going to show a bit of opinion there, but to give you an example, like if they only ever produce, say, pro-Israel, and they never criticise stuff that Israel's doing, then that's a problem, because we can all accept, no matter where we stand, that they most certainly aren't saints all the time. People can make different opinions on like how much they're saints, but certainly you would have to get... I mean, Saudi's actually a better one that you can use example, because there'll be less people hating me for talking about it. But essentially, like, Saudi are our allies. Saudi buy a whole shitload of stuff off us. Saudi are a big important part of the British financial institute and everything that goes along with it. They are also quite regularly a showery assholes to a lot of people. BBC very, very, very rarely take the stance Saudis are being assholes. Do you know what I mean? They always sugarcoat it if they are as well. They're always like, but you know, like, the other thing is when we talk about on TV, like, they always... when they have a balance, like, we have to get a balance in. Well, you don't always have to get a balance in. Like, this is another thing that's been created by media. Like, well, what does the guy say about climate denial? Doesn't matter what he thinks.
Yeah, I think it's down to media literacy as well, because people fund it. It kind of goes from 0 to 100 in rage because you're being fed, like, you're not getting the full picture. But it's a bit like, you know, thinking about what you got in primary school, and I get really frustrated that nobody taught me about the black history of Scotland and the role in the slave trade. You know, it's things like that. It isn't until you're a grown-up and going, oh, bloody hell, I should know that. You know, it's. I mean, I'm not expecting everybody to spoon feed it to me, but I just wish that, you know, I didn't get so much of a certain history. You know, because it's about. I mean, we spent 20 years calling media studies a Mickey Mouse subject, right? And fundamentally, more people need to know and be able to deconstruct media to understand how it's made, how credibility's formed, how newsrooms can build trust. And actually, what you're kind of describing is the thing about the BBC. It's not a monolith. People I know work for the BBC, but you know, they probably share the same thing. But the thing that's really frustrating is it's like with a lot of newspapers and television is they've lost the trust of the audience. And actually the age of what's happening now is they need to build trust more than ever, because unfortunately, I would much rather have the BBC than a man with a blog. I like plurality in media, so I'd like to see more voices being amplified and used, and not just sticking to that sort of regular construction of this is an argument, this is a counter argument, and it's like, you know, I'd like to see better, but the only way we can hold it account if more people understand the language and the discourse, and there's a vocabulary around it that's a shared vocabulary, not just an elitist vocabulary that you need to have a PhD to even sit at the fucking table. You know what I mean? It's like, I think I wonder, I mean, I'd be interested with I don't want to deviate too much to it, but I'd be interested with the new kind of the Nine and everything, the BBC Scotland, and putting more staff in and more people who are doing stuff, because I think a lot of this stuff as well is down to cuts and freelancing and contracts and all this kind of stuff. But I don't want to deviate.
No, that's all right. Yeah. There was a study, like a Stanford study not too long ago that we spoke about in a couple of presentations, and they were sort of looking at how well children kind of were able to interpret media. They were looking at whether they were able to tell a paid-for advertising piece from a regular piece. they were asking them to go and search the internet and check whether something was credible or factual, and like it was a big study as well, like 56 tasks to students across 12 states. They analysed 7,804 students, and it was like really diverse. There were like inner city schools, there were suburban schools, universities ranging from Stanford to like like community colleges and stuff like that. And yeah, basically they said that the outlook for all age ranges, all levels leak. They were not able to determine whether something was accurate or not, real or not.
There's some fascinating research around sort of Generation Z and the kind of the generation that have grown up online, right? So they don't remember a time without it, and they are actually experiencing a lot of the kind of fallout of like being online bullying and depression caused by comparison on Instagram and Snapchat and all that sort of stuff, and actually wanting no screen time. But the relationship between how they use devices and distinguishing between, I need to have a look at the study, but distinguishing between what they see news as, how they consume news. I'd be surprised. I bet if you were to ask journalist students now, they would be like, "Who reads a paper here?" They'd be like, "I probably don't." They probably don't pay for their news, but they all want to go on and then work in a newspaper or want to have a job as a journalist. And they can disconnect between paying for quality media, paying for media that's credible. They might not agree with their viewpoint. We've got there's so much work to do. Dana Boyd, who works for the Microsoft Research Centre, she's brilliant on media literacy, or the critique of media literacy, that sort of thing, where it's contextual with young people because they might not be able to recognise the news, but they might recognise when information's false because they live on the internet and they can understand when something... It's maybe the older generations are sharing that, but these are big, vast generalisations. But there is this sort of relationship between how young people use phones as a producing device. So they make content, so they're on Snapchat or Insta stories, or they send photos, or they're projecting their identity out online as a piece of content themselves. And the content they consume, they might not even be in that space. They're consuming content through ads or influencers and that sort of thing.
That's the thing. One of the things that I think you touched on there was so media students don't buy newspapers but want to be paid to work in media. The problem with that though is then the newspaper. So let's use something ungodly like the Daily Mail. So the Daily Mail, for them to then be generating money, they have to have adverts on their online pages, but then they need to have clicks on their adverts on their online pages. So you have to have both clickbait shite headlines, but on top of that, garbage articles about Kim Kardashian and what she had to drink last Tuesday because people want to click on it, and if they click on that, then you're getting hits for the adverts, and then you're generating the income that you can then. So you can have. Online's
one of the most popular websites in the world.
That's why I used it. Like it's just that way where like they have to be generating income, so they have to then be producing what used to be created by real bottom end garbage websites to get clicks for adverts, but they have to now meet the same criteria.
But it also means because that's what's generating the profit, that's what they're going to spend money on.
Well, it means that
people who can do that.
Yeah, it means your credible journalists become less important. So you've still got them there. You've sent him over to go and or you sent him and her over to go and play Brazil to write about a racist. But while you're over there doing that, you've got a person who's writing about how. I was actually going to say something, but I forgot who it was as the next Top Gear presenter, but that shows how interested I was in it. But it got announced the other day, and I've seen some fleeting bit about they've announced new Top Gear. But the point is, I've seen that on my Facebook feed, and I definitely don't care about that piece of information.
Well, and that's one of the other things as well, Jen, that like people are receiving news in a totally different way. They're not sitting down in the morning, opening up a paper and reading the headlines. It's been filtered in between like a video of a cat and people's photos and people's opinions on things.
Yeah, when people are talking about media bias as well, like they might be cherry picking articles, right? But if you if you went and bought a copy of the Herald today, right, you would read it with a coffee, which is quite a nice thing to do actually, especially if you spend a lot of time on social media. You'd be reading things in context, right? So you'd be going, there's so-and-so's written that, so-and-so's written that, and it's actually an entertainment package, because news is entertainment, right? The thing you're talking about there is like about when you make news a business. You take away the fact that it serves a purpose about communication and information and how communities get their news. But it's remembering when you get rage because the Guardian or the Herald or like the Telegraph are just publishing these types of articles. If you read it as a printed newspaper, then actually it takes you away from the internet. It takes you away from the constant feedback as well. So you've got to feel like there's this feeling that the social media invites you to have an opinion on it as well. So before you've even finished it or even read it, you're rattling away to the journalist. By the way, I think you're rubbish because of the headline that was put with it.
Or you're raging with the comments. Like, I've read an article, I've now chosen to stop reading the article.
Go down
and then when you look in the comment section, and it's just like...
Let's find a roaster, yeah.
And the dig is usually, in these scenarios, is quite quick. You get top 2 or 3.
But that sort of feedback from punters is kind of bled into the news as well now. Like if you're watching BBC or watching ITV and they've announced the budget, they're straight away out the street. Oh right, Margaret, what do you think about that? I don't give a fuck what Margaret thinks about that.
Or even worse, you get it, and it's a more an American thing, but it does happen in the UK where it's just like, how's about you tweet us and let us know? How's about you don't fucking do that under any circumstances?
And how's about instead of using that time you've just spent like 3 minutes asking punters who don't really know fuck all about the budget their opinion? Why could we not have like a couple of prominent economists making some fucking salient points about it?
Because remember, we don't believe experts anymore.
We don't
need experts in this day and age. But
alright, Michael, go.
But the other problem is, much the same as what you were talking about, and actually bringing it back to when we were talking about your mum and the random racist people sharing stuff about Muslims and poppies. The problem is, those people that you have in your Facebook are the people who are sharing the tweet from the Times about something overly offensive that they find confirms their bias. So you only, off that person, only ever seen it. Now if you've got like 10, 15, 20 people that share some kind of weirdly similar, possibly biased opinions, your Facebook feed is now with lots of articles where it's just like, the world is falling apart, there are Muslims having Tommy Robinson's a god amongst men and other garbage that you see. But that then creates news that you're seeing. Suddenly the news you're seeing is not that nuanced, lots of different stories that's an article.
There's algorithms at play.
Yeah, there's a relationship as well between things you're willing to say on the internet versus things you were willing to walk into your office and start talking about. Now, the internet, I mean, there's a good and a bad here. The internet is quite good for tentatively starting to form opinions and starting to form ideas. And I mean, this is where I've been over the last couple of months, is tentatively starting to look at misinformation in the context of the work I've been doing. So I've done this amount of work, and I think that there's some merit in pursuing it, and actually talking about it online means that I can meet like-minded people who are interested in this stuff, and then the more you talk about it, the more it starts to become a real thing. It works really well with mental health stuff, actually, because you start talking about mental health and people message you and you realise you're not alone, and it's a great kind of space. But this idea of being able to then test your ideas, and then if you're exposed to all this quite crazy stuff and you're kind of going, well, that's the real news. I mean, I met some people in Dundee who were lovely in real life, but were sharing anti-vax stuff. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, right. But then they're sharing that because their friends are sharing that, and it's a kind of spread like a virus. And there was
kids vaccinated, really?
Aye.
Yeah,
aye. Like quite literally a virus, boom, boom. So it's that sort of thing where if you're starting to form your ideas, I've got a friend who is
a flat earther. Say a flat earther.
No. My friend's trans, but we were discussing around when they were kind of coming out and stuff like that, that they were forming their ideas, and it's easier to sort of test these ideas and be you, like being in a chat room talking to other people, than it is to be like, hello, friends I work with, people I go to university with, this is what it is. It's a way of kind of coming out slowly, because it's
building confidence.
It's you're directed, your brain and your fingers are kind of connected together, and it's like that's your identity, that's you speaking. But that can work. That's why you get these like people getting braver with their more racist opinions, and you're like, right, okay. So we used to joke about this after Brexit, like, you know, going around to Christmas, and people in America the same. I've got to deal with my Trump supporting relatives, but people are getting braver in this sort of like quite dogmatic views, and you're like, before it used to just be like, oh god, they've had sherry and now they've got a wee bit, my gran's went a wee bit racist, right, okay, she's wee bit. So it's that sort of thing, and now it's like, nope, I don't just read the Daily Mail, I saw it on Facebook, so it's confirming my stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, it's just trying to navigate all this and not let it stick to you, you know?
Well, and when you've got politicians like Boris Johnson getting room in national newspapers to talk about Muslim women looking at letterboxes and stuff like that, it's dog whistling, and it's allowing, it's normalising this sort of speech, it's giving people room to speak.
Yeah, it's verifying it. So you could have a bunch of like kind of quite hardcore bloggers who've got a big following on the internet, and then it just takes somebody that's in a position of authority, if it's an elected member or an organisation that is
certainly an elected member. That's what I describe.
So then the elected member then verifies. So I saw this in my research with alternative media. So the journalist and this is quite a kind of vanilla thing, but the journalist that gets into the sports event for free, then makes a blog post about it, and then his friend then goes, "Oh, good, so and so wrote this." So then he does a film about so and so getting into the event for free, and then that gets published, and then the guy who writes a blog post about the film, and it's sort of like they verify each other because they're kind of sharing each other's content. And back in 2008, that was like seen as 2010, that was seen as a pure, that's what you do as bloggers, you kind of nod your hat to your pals, and then you Google likes links, so therefore you go up the Google rankings because more people are linking to you. What we're getting now is like, I'm verifying my very bizarre opinion because Boris Johnson's going, this is what the people want. And we've seen this happening with Nigel Farage and all that sort of stuff.
That's it. I mean, so I regularly have a bee in my bonnet about Steve Bannon. I mean, a lot of this comes back to Steve Bannon, which is what he done in America and what he's now actively trying to do in both Europe and the UK, which is essentially he is more than aware that if he can make everyone, or make the general populace have their slightly weird racist views, so not anything that is, and I'm not saying it's not racist and it should be, but stuff that is relatively harmless when they speak about it in the House themselves, if they then say, oh, but that could be qualified in society, so now everybody who then does think stuff like women in burqas look like letterboxes can now say in the pub openly, oh, women in burqa, woman walks by in a burqa just like, oh, letterbox, and everybody's like, because that's okay now, because it's now been made okay, and in doing that, it then shifts that slightly racist view slightly
mainstreams
right. And it makes centrist politics
dragging over the window.
So it makes centrist politics then become slightly right wing of centrist politics, and you keep on moving that along, and then suddenly what is now centre, what is now seen by the general public, or 90% of the general public, is now somewhere in the middle of the right wing, and then that then means that you can then put forward a politician that is a bit more right wing, and people are just like, well, it's got the same views as me, and suddenly you've now qualified this whole thing. I mean, it's Andrew Breitbart. That's where he learned his trade.
His theory was culture exists upstream of politics.
Yeah. But then I'm going to bring it back to, I'm an optimist, right? So I went to see that Parazan film a couple of weeks ago.
I was reading about that.
Oh, I saw it in Dundee, a preview of it. It's brilliant. And then I went to see it at the GFT, and they did this sort of launch with some of the guys that are in it, so the guys from East Kilbride, and one of them said, like, somebody asked, like, you know, with everything going on and what you fought for and your principles and what you stood up to, how do you feel about all the stuff that's going on? He went, life's a pendulum, it swings this way, it swings that way, and as long as there's people calling it out and standing to their principles, you know. And for me, I felt like, you know, this is a guy who's kind of seen it all, and actually he didn't realise when he decided to be part of the men that boycotted Pinochet's engines that this would happen, because he didn't find out until, you know, a couple of years ago. But it's that sort of having principles and being like, yeah, you know, even though the world's gone to shit on social media and the fallout of that, it's still having your principles and going, nah, I've got an inkling, and being able to kind of shift your work that way as well. So I'm trying to stay sane in a world that feels like it's insane, but I liked his approach, because I was just like, no, I'm going to listen to this man because he has some principles back in the 70s, and now he's here, and he's kind of, it was very emotional, and it was very sort of like, you know, I just did a wee thing. I just stayed with my colleagues, and we decided it was a good thing to find out that butterfly effect of me doing a good thing had helped these people stay alive in Chile. That was like, you know, what's that? I mean, there's some little wee stories kind of fill us with hope, you know.
Is the message there then not that there needs to be action though? Like, we need to take action. It's all well and good sometimes, you know, signing a petition online or putting a post up online, but we actually, there are things that we can do at a macro level, at a small level, that we should be doing, rather than talking about doing them.
Well, I think, my politics have always been left of centre, and I think that I kind of became politicised after Vancouver, because even though I was over there doing this piece of research, I kind of saw the impact the Olympics had on everyday people who were being displaced and stuff like that. So I became politicised, and I went super left to the point where I was like, fuck the Olympics, everybody gets involved in these big events or arsehole. And I was during the London Olympics, I was like, I'm not going to smile at this is shite. Everybody else has got, these people today, it's like, oh, back to 2012 when the world was great. I was like, no, the world was fucked then as well. We got there because it was where we fucking let them in, right? We let the bad guys in through putting all this shiny, like, happy stuff on, but Boris Johnson was up there dancing, being a buffoon.
Yeah. So
I was like that, and I've kind of come back a little bit, just because I was at the point I had no pals and I'd ruin a party if you mentioned the Olympics. Like, it was like, my old flatmate was like, don't mention the Olympics, right?
Showing up with an Antifa bandana.
I know, totally, like, sort of black bloc up, right? So I kind of explored that sort of thing, and I did all my reading and critical stuff, and I'm glad I did, because when I'm writing, I am coming from that sort of position. And deep down, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, I want to improve the quality of online discourse. I voted yes. I was involved in the Green Party. I was involved as an activist. I'd loved Scotland to be independent, but on terms that, not just on terms, but just like going, look, let's not be fuds about this. Let's not just be waving a flag. Let's be international about our approach. Let's, think about better contracts and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. And that we could imagine a really exciting Scotland.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity to just go, let's not just be like a fucking tin pot state. Let's actually be like, we're great. We're wonderful.
You were just shouting the word "yuns" from time to time.
Oh no, that was me. Well, that's as well. Like, I'm also funded by the Sevco, and I'm a Yun plant. So I'm a deep splinter cell. So I've been doing this.
Deep state.
I'm a deep agent of the state, according to some. So, but the thing is, right, the bottom line is, it's like you want your communities to be represented. You want, if a big thing for me is kind of people in recovery is the groups I like helping, and but I also don't like the way the services are, and I think the way that stigma around addiction recovery is terrible. So that's my kind of, I hate a pet project. It's might want to kind of give back on. So I would challenge some of the drug policy stuff that's going on in the moment in Scotland. But that doesn't mean that I hate Scotland. That means that, I'd like less people to die in Scotland, right? Because they could be prevented sooner. But the problem we've got at the moment is that even if you deviate from that thing online, they go, oh, you're against us. It's like, no, I'm not with you. You're kind of weird. Yeah. But I'm very much with the idea that if we all work together, we can be the country we should be now, rather than wait until we get independence. Let's try and do what we can do now.
But if you take that to the extent that you're not allowed to criticise any policy, then it's fucking bonkers.
I know. That's what democracy is. You're allowed to have a discussion and a debate, and all that.
Well, this is one of the things that we even spoke about on our episode that's not out yet, but will be out before this episode came out, so it's out now. But which is about Scottish independence. That just because you're voting for Scottish independence doesn't mean that you're voting to be perpetually ruled by the SNP. Like, if you don't agree with the SNP, get independence, then vote for some other cunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, essentially, we're not tying you down. Like, and me and Jerry find ourselves fighting probably even more so now for certain things, because what you were talking about community and stuff like that, like, because of where we're from, like, we'll always have a bit of a chip on our shoulder regarding Westminster, regarding the Tories, regarding the Thatcher era, regarding the fact that, from where we're recording right now, if you looked out, you would have been able to see the Ravenscraig. I watched it collapse from a back garden up that hill that nobody can see. But just take it from me, there's a hill where I was pointing.
Paul definitely pointed it.
And I had a garden up there. I didn't. Anyway, it's totally irrelevant. But the point is, I watched them collapse from there, and that's so we'll always have a chip on our shoulder, and it always then feels like there's stuff to fight for, because you've seen where your community can be and how quickly your community can be decimated by terrible politics.
When I started talking about action, I didn't necessarily mean
rise up.
but you can do little things within your community. You can get involved in helping to distribute stuff for the food banks. You can there's so many things you can get on. You can get involved in helping like in community projects, and get involved in so much stuff that is going to make the place that you live a better place, rather than just moaning about it.
It's difficult as well, because I found myself post-referendum getting sucked into Twitter, and I lived down south for 6 years, and it took me a little while to come to yes, because I had friends down south, so I was like, that wasn't thinking, we'll just fuck England off and we'll just we have to work in context of we share land, but there's ways of doing that, right? So for me, it's been what the kind of movement that's happening now, these sort of like pick a side, pick a tribe, or you're not part of it, is not what I signed up to, and I'll never sign up to it. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not a member of a political party anymore, because I think it impacts on my judgment in terms of what I believe and staying true to your values. But you're completely right. When I catch myself getting too upset and wound up about things on Twitter, I have to get off fucking internet and go, am I doing enough in my actual community that I live in? Am I picking up rubbish, or am I just tweeting, oh fuck's sake, Glasgow, look at the state of this place, are you actually contributing to it, or are you
City Council, fuck's sake, lads?
I know, but that's what you get. There's this sort of idea of, if I vent online, somebody will do it for me. And in my previous job, I worked in service design, which the Scottish Government are loving at the moment. It's around this idea of designing services fit for purpose for people, but I'm like, do we want to make it easier for people to make noise complaints so that they don't bother chatting their neighbour's door and go, by the way lads, could you just turn it down? And then you build community because you're kind of going, oh sorry, I didn't realise that was too loud. What you're doing is sort of kind of automating these digital transformation projects are kind of going, right, we're not going to speak to anyone anymore, we're just going to file stuff. So it's just a delicate balance between making things streamline and actually going, wait a minute, am I out helping my community? I felt for me that when I left the Green Party, I've still got friends in the Green Party, and I like the way that they kind of offer an alternative and stuff, but it wasn't for me in terms of being in a political party. However, it was interesting and relevant to be able to see how it works. But for me, it's like, I can do what I can do with the drugs and recovery groups. That's what I've been focusing on, and that's what I can give my energy to. Otherwise it gets split up too much and you end up trying to do a lot of things badly. And if you're trying to be self-employed and then also pursue misinformation and do this and that, then you also need to pay your bills, and you also need to kind of go, right, I need to go to the gym, or I need to like eat well, and then it can just go, you can become so absorbed in it that actually you make yourself ill. So, and I think there's that sort of people that it can be easy to slip into a kind of internet coma, which is scroll. I'm aware of what's going on. Information overload. Brilliant. I know what's going on in the world. I don't need to do anything. So it's actually think it's really good for people to get to a mental state where you come offline and go, right, I'm going to spend the weekend doing that thing. It's...
Well, actually, on that, see if you're from North Lanarkshire or in the immediate area, even South Lanarkshire, and there is something that you want to do, our local regularly does drives for food banks, and one of our local councillors also does a lot of stuff for the Refugees Welcome, and we've done runs from Wishaw before to Cali for stuff. So in the event you're from the area and you're not sure what to do but you want to do something, contact us, because we know a pile of people that would love you to have to help and would love to be able to get involved. And there's people who are just waiting for there to be enough people to help them do stuff.
Yeah, aye. Furthermore, if you are doing something, then let us know and we can
point everybody over.
Yeah.
So pulling it back to what you have been spending time on recently, Jen, you've been looking at social media literacy, and you've sort of identified the main challenges as you see them for online discourse.
Yeah.
Would you want to talk us a wee bit through that?
Yeah, so I guess I was kind of going, right, I need to start formalising this, and I've been doing a lot of big chats with people. I've spoken to some experts who are experts in like literally Russian and Ukrainian bots. So I've spoken to people that are, more in the literacy aspect of in terms of education, journalists, editors of papers, and kind of people in between, psychologists and stuff like that. And I've been going, right, okay, 9's a nice number because people like to be able to organise their thoughts in these sort of patterns, but I've been kind of thinking, right, what are the kind of key things that I certainly have been personally have found myself getting outraged by, and how can we maybe reflect on our own practice in terms of I've done a lot of social media training over the years. The last 10 years, I've went into organisations and I've shown them how to do this is how to do Twitter nicely, and this is how to do videos, and this is why you would use these types of visual communications to reach your audiences. And a lot of it's third sector and community setting. But I'm kind of again going, right, okay, so people now know how to use social media. So how do you use social media better? Or how do you protect yourself? Or how do you reflect on your own practice? Or be able to kind of get into the shoes of the people that are raging or sending you abuse. Because once I met a woman who worked in a library, and she said to me, oh, I'm doing the social media. Somebody got in touch with me at 10 o'clock at night, and I nearly went in. I was going to get my husband to drive in, and I was going to fix it for them. And I was like, no. Don't go into the library and fix it at 10 at night. Just wait till the next morning. The kind of evolving of that is, if somebody's sending you abuse on Twitter and you're an organisation, don't just tolerate it. There's actually ways and means you can start to think about why this person thinks that they are entitled for your time. Or so my point, I'm deviating. So the idea is, what do I think the 9 reasons why this is happening in the internet? And one of them is kind of this, we talked about earlier, is this need to vent online, and we all do it. Like, it's almost like a compulsion. I sat down on the ScotRail train to Edinburgh, and those little fucking triangle tables are designed to provoke. They're actually, as a designer, right, as somebody with a wee bitty design from the service design stuff, I'm going, right, you put a table, but it's not really a table, it's a triangle. So one of us is going to have this table, but we're not going to fully have this table. Oh, you've put your coffee on it, I haven't put my laptop. And then the 2 guys here don't have a table. So somebody's designed that. So then you're sitting there going, right, that's going to be a good tweet, isn't it? Because these fucking ScotRail. So then I'm tweeting at ScotRail. So then I'm just putting negativity out onto the internet because I feel that I need to rant about this table. But times that by billions of tweets all the time.
I mean, in saying that though, triangle is not the shape for a table.
No,
we tried and tested. We have a table shape that is not triangle.
Yeah, we had
I
to.
love the phrase, it was designed to provoke.
Oh,
That's amazing.
I was like, this is like, so that, but then,
I think that's what Twitter's for, though. I think it was also designed to provoke.
Yeah, Twitter is just IRC on steroids. So it's just basically hashtags and channels and stuff with no moderators. So brilliant. We used to have moderators, and now we can just say what we want.
But it's okay though, because I think Twitter have taken the like function away. That's how they're going to deal with that.
So now we're shouting into the void, and we don't know if anyone's caring, or unless they retweet us. Yeah, so there's this idea that we must vent. So your team loses, or that, but you just vent, and then sometimes you vent at a real person, and then you realise that person has had 800, 900 venting all day. Then what contribution does that have to somebody's mental health? The job that they signed up to 10 years ago is not the job they were meant to do. So are they meant to just tolerate that venting? What happens if you're not an employed member of staff or a public elected member? You're just a person that wrote something that got popular. Are you meant to have people stalking you on the internet? It's that sort of you become this figure that for a moment that folk then send you shit.
Can I ask, because it's only when I hadn't even thought about it up until now, see if Twitter removed the like function, does it not just then mean that more people are likely to retweet, which means that the statements are going to be qualified more because it's then tweeted out and put in front? Like, at the present moment, someone likes one of our tweets. Mm-hmm. We see it's liked. Other people can see it's liked if they're looking or whatever, but it doesn't go onto someone else's feed and then onto someone else's feed and onto someone else's feed. If you remove the like function, the only real function there, like you said, is then a retweet. Mm. So then that means that my statement is now being retweeted by the 80 people that would have liked it. Yeah. There are now 80 people that have retweeted it, which, by the way, for us is great because it means that we're going to see more shares for the podcast. Yeah. But that's surely dangerous.
Maybe Twitter's the bad guy.
Well, I mean,
maybe they don't actually care. Maybe they quite enjoy it.
Until we've got a verified account, I would disagree.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, Twitter, I'd like a verified account too, please, if you're listening. Anyway, so there was that the idea of venting, but also we're spending more time online. Yeah. So I was thinking as well, in the last 2 years, the amount of books I'm reading, the amount of sitting down. I've been doing an experiment this year to just try and widen my concentration levels, because before I left Dundee, I was struggling to just watch a full episode of a television programme without doing this. So I'm trying to go, right, I'm going to watch this whole programme. I'm better at it. And that sounds ridiculous, but it's almost like a retraining myself to go, look, you don't need to be... I think I'm sort of person that definitely is the compulsive type, so I would have all the screens up and I think, well, fuck it, yeah, more screens, yeah. But I've been like kind of going, right, this isn't good for my mental health, because I'm just soaking up all the knowledge and all the stuff. So I'm just trying to kind of go, right,
all the evil and badness.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, when I did a degree in media studies, and then I kind of like, they went to me, you need to read more newspapers. So I was a total news junkie. I'd go buy hundreds of newspapers. I love that.
You're probably single-handedly keeping...
I love newspapers.
That's why there is 2 newspapers in Dundee.
Yeah.
Because they were just like, look at these fucking numbers, we can definitely have 2.
I love the newspaper. I pay for my media. So anyway, there's that sort of... But if we're spending more time online and we're like, swiping and like you lift your phone up, there's like 25 notifications from various apps. It's hitting some synapses that's kind of like rewarding.
Yeah.
But then we're not doing other things like, coming offline and having a chat. And I think podcasts are great because they are give you that space to think about.
Well, the thing is, there's a couple of things that I was going to say regarding it. Do a podcast, because you'll find yourself unable to look at your fucking phone because you're recording a podcast, so you can't check your phone.
I'm drumming now, so I drum for that reason.
You
can't look at your phone because you've got to practice your drumming.
Like what we're talking about with the kind of negative stuff that's shared, the problem is when you're checking, it's not like, see, you were just jumping on Facebook and seeing like loads of nice stories about people saving fucking cats and wee cute dogs or whatever, like it would be at least arguably good for your brain. But if you're...
It'd be boring as fuck.
I know, but if you look on Facebook and it's just like something, attack, something, stabby person, something, bomb exploded in Syria, something, you know what I mean? Every one of these things, it's just negative and it shapes your view.
Do you think though there's a little bit, now this is going to be controversial, do you think there's a little bit of people we kind of enjoy arguing online? There's almost like something in human nature. I was listening to something, I read Brené Brown's new book, and she was talking about conspiracies as human beings. The idea that so this is related to fake news. We love a conspiracy because like shit doesn't happen. It's not just like there's actually something behind that, and I think there is an element of people do like the idea that there's something mad going on, and they're the investigator, and then but they don't realise that they're so at the bottom of the chain of investigation, because there's actually like you're in a Facebook comment on something that's already been recorded. Like you're theorising around something. They've wrote this, they've made the video, and now you're down here in comment 8,000. But there's still that feeling of like human desire to be part of a conspiracy and to argue and debate and all that.
And you know something that they don't.
Yeah,
psychologist.
You're onto it. I know.
Psychologist friend, Dr. Stephen Brown.
Yeah.
He's actually done some papers on this a while ago. He had done some stuff about it, about this very thing. But yet the other thing is...
It's a psychological defect.
But on the same grounds as what you were talking about, the other thing that people do as well, and it's podcast related, is people listen to true crime podcasts, each to their own, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
Right? But people listen to true crime podcasts...
New series of Serial's pretty good, I'm just putting that out there.
Serial's good,
Aye, smashing. And they then go online and join forums and groups and try to solve a fucking cold case from fucking 30 years ago based on information that they can only get off like a fucking podcast on the internet. The information has already been looked at.
It's another thing as well. It's pedo hunter. You've seen the pedo hunter groups,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Right. So people are taking the law into their own hands, and it's pedo hunting. But then the pedos that have been accused are then going after the. I mean, I don't know where I read it. I've read it again. I read all the. So I read all. I read all the tabloids, right? It doesn't reflect in my politics, but it's good to know how they work, right? So, and that's what I'd encourage people to read them with that viewpoint, not because you're like, this is the paper equals your politics. However, I think I read something in the Sun that was that there was a pedo hunter website, and then one woman who was like the chief vigilante has now been like, the pedos of rumours about her being a pedo, and it's like meta-pedo.
Meta-pedo.
But then it's like this sort of like taking things in their own hands. So we don't like experts now, right down to the point that we don't feel the police are doing their job properly, so we'll fucking just go and do it ourselves.
I came home from a holiday and I was talking to my girlfriend, and I was talking to her and said, how did you get home? Yeah, not bad. I had been there with the family. She was actually different. But anyway, so we're walking back, and as I'm walking back, I had went to get a takeaway, and I had parked up the car because the policeman said, you can't go by there. I said, why not? He says, oh, you just can't go by there. So I'm walking home at fucking 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, and there is literally about 40 people in the street behind my street, all standing, some of them looking like they're looking like anarchists, you know what I mean? They've got masks on their face, they're possibly holding hockey sticks. I might have made that bit up. But anyway, they're all kicking about and shouting, they're holding posters, and there's a policeman standing, saying, "What's happening here?" He says, "Sorry, I'm not going to be able to tell you." And the woman standing next to him says, "The fun of pedo in that house." So I was just like cracking on the floor of the gym, just like, aye, there's pedo hunters.
So back to that thing about doing something good in your community, getting offline, you know, it's like, yeah.
Find the pedos. Like,
Yeah.
but so it was just that weird. Then it was like, so then I seen from my house on Facebook a live video from behind me of a girl who was shouting about a pedo in a house that I could see from my house with the police standing round it. My neighbours were like, "Where's your car, pal?" I was like, "Back through there, the pedo's going in the way." I was like, "Oh, fucking pedos."
Oh god, it starts becoming, yeah, man.
But yeah, so I mean, there is that thing where, and that was a group of people who had hunted down. I mean, I knew before I got home, and the house distance was literally about from here to maybe one of your neighbours away, Jerry.
Yeah.
I knew by that time the background story of the said paedophile, where he came from, how they found him, and his actions as a paedophile that got him to the state that he was there. I was carrying a curry and trying to get home, and people were telling me this, and none of them knew. Like, none of them absolutely fucking knew, but they all told me in the way there.
I mean, at least one positive is that it wasn't happening online, it was happening in real life.
Oh, well, at least they weren't getting in the house.
They probably is like a secret hunt, but that's all links together. I mean, it's back to my original point about the Daz online. It's like, if you grew up on the internet, you've kind of almost had a kind of a training of like, you've almost had a training of like what is real and what isn't. Maybe you've learnt the hard way. You've maybe been catfished, or you've maybe turned up and your pals have like, you know,
or victimised, or pictures of you found away on the internet and you said something that you shouldn't have said.
Yeah. So you start adapting your approach. But these people are like, they want to be anonymous. That was the other thing about online discourse. They want to be anonymous because they're doing a thing. They feel there's a privilege in anonymity, so they're part of some sort of activism. So rather than you, individual me, Jennifer, you could go back through my internet history and it'd be like, you know, I've had to clean up things because I've had blogs when I was younger and but there's a learning and a maturity about like what you put online. But if you just go, I know that I could get doxxed, or I know, or maybe not even doxxed, I know that this could get me into trouble, so I'm not even going to bother putting myself online. But I want to take all the privileges of the internet. I want to use all the fact that knowledge is shared and networks are built and community is there, and use it for this, but I don't want to be held accountable for it. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Do you think the answer to that is enforced non-anonymity?
It's difficult because I think you can have anonymity, but I think we should be braver, people that aren't anonymous, in calling out the people that are semi-anonymous. They're semi-anonymous and they're it's kind of going, right, okay, so I'm not an expert in catching pedos, right? But the police should be looking at how they improve how they deal with groups like that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the role of the police, who are experts in doing that stuff, right? And there's other groups around that who are also good at holding the police to account and that sort of stuff, and actually playing, not just, I can't believe I've went full circle. I used to be like, yeah, just do what you want, right? But full anarchy now. But no, there's the reason why there's things like universities and police and journalism and law and all these sort of stuff is there are a broad set of rules that we've all kind of subscribed to as responsible citizens to follow. So people taking things into their own hands, and that's like, you know, we need to kind of hold them to account as well. So they might be every so often doing something good and helpful, but do it through the channels that are supported. But that's not, it's difficult to regulate that. But if the police could adapt that and work with that context, then yeah, it's more down to them. I'd trust that the police to know that better than I did. Yeah. If that makes sense. It's kind of a shitty example because, yeah, we could talk about police separately. But so like a newspaper, if people are citizen journalists, and this is more my territory, if citizen journalists are taking things into their own hands, then a newsroom could tap into that resource as a citizen journalist and work with them, opening the door so the person that's maybe filming the fire in Wishaw is then getting credited or even paid for their content. then you're actually opening up a relationship between the citizen who's going and taking things into their own hands and the newsroom that's got the newspaper, the reach, and is following the code of conduct. So there's building relationships. But if you decide to ignore your community and they don't feel like they've been served, aka pedo hunters don't feel like they've been served by the police, then how do you build that relationship again so the police are then respected in that area? It's when those boundaries kind of come down.
It kind of comes back to media literacy and about, like, because it's no good having a community journalist out filming something if they've got no idea really why they're doing what they're doing, or whether they're being honest about it, whether they're presenting information in the correct manner. So, like, for me, I think throughout all the conversations that we've had over the past year and a half, and the kind of times we've been asked, well, what should we do about this? I think I'm now coming more towards education. I think that this is something which should be on the curriculum. I think that, that kids are getting taught this stuff at school. It should be a big part of the education they're getting. And secondly, I'm in favour of regulation in journalism.
Yeah. What I would say is something that you touched on earlier on about how media studies was essentially seen as like some kind of weird kooky thing that some people go into. It was a total way, no, like I was on par, no offence to anyone I'm going to offend here, but essentially like art students and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? You were essentially just like you're studying the arts, you're going to fucking learn to play violin, and one of you at the 15 years is going to get picked up with something. The SE is just going to be like a failed violin student. Your one is going to be a journalist, and the SE is going to be a failed journalist. But there's nothing they could have actually done about it. But as it turns out, history has now shown us that was actually incredibly short-sighted, because we now live in a world where not in actual terms, but everyone's a journalist. You know what I mean?
Everything's mediated, yes. I think, and you're not necessarily a journalist, but every interaction that you have with a computer is mediated.
You're publishing all the time.
You're publishing. So, the Office of National Statistics in 2016 that said that young people aged between 16 and 24 are more likely to publish content on the internet than read a newspaper. However, we are putting ourselves out there, and we are reading our friends as a text, really, like text as in a media text. So if I go on to my friend's Instagram page, I am reading my friend as a website, and what they choose to put up is a representation of my friend. But then I go meet my friend for a drink, and that's a different representation of my friend. But what's really interesting, and this is one of the other things I touched on the online discourse, is it's such an intimate thing, because we do everything through the phone, and it's just you on the phone. And you think about the moments on the phone when you're on the internet, you're kind of on your own, or if you're in a room, it's really difficult to hold a conversation and be on the internet at the same time, even though we try our best. Yeah, I'm on the phone. But you're kind of locked in on this. It's intimate. You're taking photographs and putting things up online that reflect what you want to be seen as your best light. So, here I'm at a gig, and look at this lovely food I had. But that is very, very public. So then you're looking at everybody's information very publicly. You can see conversations people are having with each other in public. You're not seeing the DMs, and you're not seeing what's going under the surface, but you're making assumptions based on what you see in public. So for something that's really intimate, you're actually getting a lot of insight about people that you don't know. So then the context can collapse, and you can actually literally piece together any story you want about a person based on what they've got online, if you want to read that story.
You can make all sorts of opinions on something. I mean, even things as regularly, not regularly, but throughout my life there have been lots of times when you can see two people that I know talking on Facebook, and someone posting underneath, how do you two know each other? Because they knew one and they knew the other, and they never knew that these two people existed in the same spheres. One was in Dundee and one was in Glasgow, and they never thought these two people, but it turns out they went to the same primary school or some shit, and they actually know each other. But then suddenly that person's world has now been totally blown, because they had these two friends that lived in two different sectors, and one's a journalist and one's like an investment banker, and there was no way they could perceive that these two people knew each other. But then it does now change this entire narrative around how these people are to you.
And we were leaving breadcrumbs as well. So photographs that I put up from Dundee last year, I didn't realise I'd be back in Glasgow so soon, right? So, but if you were looking to tell a story about why the fuck I'm back in Glasgow, you could create some fucking narrative based on Instagram tweets, if you wanted to attack somebody, you could create a narrative that's, oh, you think somebody's up to something. Well, I see that they tagged themselves in this photo, but when you put that photograph up, you might have been trying to signal something, going, haha, I'm over you, or haha, I'm out with so-and-so. And young people get that a lot, the passive aggressive use of social media. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to understand the context in which something's put on, and there is no definitive way of understanding the context somebody puts something up. The thing about newspapers, back to that, the thing about podcasts, something that's deliberate, is that it's much easier to kind of add that context in because it's framed within a paper or framed within an audio recording. But if you're just putting these wee breadcrumbs up about, here's a tweet, here's a photo, folk can just be like, I kind of got to the end of my PhD and realised we don't need citizen journalists, we need to help people understand that what they are consuming online is a reflection of what they see the world as, because they are subscribing to feeds that suit them. They are maybe cyber stalking people to see what they're up to and stuff. We all do it, right? We do it. Even if you don't do it explicitly, we might log into Facebook, oh, so-and-so's split with so-and-so, oh, okay. And then there's a sort of kind of local gossip to it, but it's part of the platform. It's not your fault as a person. The platform encourages that. It's designed around that.
I think like two friends can say something, just like, so just happened. I've seen that. So you've now seen. I've seen that piece of information about one of our close friends. They've not told me about it, and I've not witnessed it, but I've seen it.
And I've filled the gaps in.
I've seen it as a reference point. It says, we always knew it was going to happen. You know what I mean?
But I think as humans, that's always been there. It's just that there's now a platform that makes it easier. Like gossip sort of had an evolutionary use. You know, it brought us closer together as communities, and it allowed us to interact. Like, oh, I've got a wee tidbit, I'm going to give this to you, but I shouldn't really. That's building the relationship. It's a
trade, yeah. It's back to building trust and stuff, and it's just like, again, your phone, anything you screen grabbed and sent, and you'd be lying to say you haven't done it. Like, you've been in a private conversation and you screen grab it and send it to somebody else and and it's,
look at this Bob accent.
And then it gets leaked and people hacking your phone, people hacking your emails, people reading stuff like that. So there's just like it's the information's all there. Like, turning your phone over and your notifications are there, and you can just get a snippet of somebody's text. You know what I mean? It's human nature to be nosy.
From quite a dark point of view, one of the things that first and foremost, it seems like quite a large spate of suicides that happen more frequently now than did before, probably because you see it.
I think you're more aware of it.
Because you're more aware of it. But on top of that as well, how regularly people, when someone has committed suicide or whatever, post about how just like I had no idea that that's how they were feeling, and I didn't know, and they always seem so, but they don't, in a lot of cases they don't mean they always seem so happy and cheery. What I mean is the persona that they put across or through all the social media does say, I'm fucking sitting in a dark room crying. Do you know what I mean?
And that's another one of the kind of online discourse kind of thing I was looking at, is it's as we're spending more time online. I mean, I certainly know when I'm in Glasgow, like when I'm Dundee, it was a smaller place, but in Glasgow, I knew my friends were close by. Like, living in the south side of Glasgow, it's like everybody lives in the same community and the people I work with and hang out with, but we never hang out with each other, right? So we all kind of were watching each other's Instagram stories, and we know, oh, so-and-so's in that bar. I could go out and see them, but I'm sitting here, am I welcome? So we're spending a lot of sort of time sort of this mediation of our friendship, but in Dundee I was pretty lonely, so even not having that knowing that somebody was in the pub and I could go, and that's quite a nice feeling, like I know you're there and I could just pop in, but I'm not going to because I've got all these other options, right? Or I could have an option to sit on my arse and watch this Insta story, right? But there's that, but we're watching this mediation of people's lives and so again, do we actually stop and go, is so-and-so okay? I was joking there, but I've not seen a friend for ages, and then they post something weird. What point is it? Are you breaking a boundary by going, are you all right? No, I'm going to come over and see you, because we're all trying to learn how to navigate this platform together. The more I try and understand it, the more I don't understand it. And if I'm trying to do this professionally and people aren't, then, how do we interpret signs online? You're not going to put up online, by the way. If you do put up, by the way, actually this happened, folk go, oh, we never said. You go, well, yeah, it wasn't the appropriate time to talk about it. But I think, with there's a good and a bad. I think thanks to social media, people are talking about mental health more.
Yeah.
And I think
I would agree with that.
And I think that sometimes you can put a call out for help, and it's not just what's in public. Because when I was having a really hard time in Dundee, and I kind of came home back from my holidays and 5 a.m, I was like, things aren't right, and I kind of posted a thread, and a few people sent me a message that, you know, been following each other, and they were up late, and we had great chats in DM, and it was like, yeah, you know, you're not on your own, and that's great. But you're also like kind of going, right, should my Twitter account be used like to talk about this stuff? And you realise actually talking about it means that folk go, oh right, okay, you are talking about that stuff, that's good to know that somebody else feels that way, I don't feel so alone, and that's brilliant. But it's also, I do agree that it does contribute a lot to mental health stuff, especially if you're on the other end of something that's quite negative. And you know, I wrote an analysis for the Herald, and at the last paragraph I wrote was about, are you aware if you're part of a mob? Like, are you aware? Are you, like, you might be angry at something or you read, but are you aware that you're actually part of a mob? And do you see what that person, that individual person sees when all these people are launching abuse at them? Because that's quite interesting, because I've caught myself almost sending something, I don't agree with you, so I'm trying to take a step back, and then that contributes to mental health, because you could be the strongest person in the world, right, but it gets under your skin after so many days.
So don't say this, because I'm not going to feel bad about the watching. Like, I give him fucking grief all the time.
He cops it, to be fair. Yeah. So that kind of, so negative use of social media kind of leads us on a wee bit to something you, well, experienced firsthand.
Yeah.
Last year.
Well, last month.
Oh, was it last?
August, yeah.
Right. So, yeah. Do you want to tell the listeners exactly what happened?
So, as I move, as I've sort of described over the course of the last hour, my move from my interest in alternative media and then getting into this sort of misinformation thing, I started sort of looking at two women, in fact, within various circles who'd experienced abuse from their own community, really. One was an SNP councillor and the other was a kind of activist around the EU. Both experienced a pile-on from social media users, because one called out the BBC the protest at the BBC, because the last time there was a protest at the BBC, she'd witnessed some activists who were shouting at the cleaners for working at the BBC. So she kind of said that, look, not everybody in the building of the BBC is part of a great big conspiracy. And as if I having to point that out, you know, it's like, come on, guys. Like,
just like, just like, you know what we should do, though? We should totally fucking tell them that it's fucking, everybody's voting fucking no.
Yeah. Vote no. And they're rubbing like vote no granules into the fucking, yeah. So there's all this sort of like, so it's like, have a word with yourself, right? If you're shouting at a fucking cleaner, right? You know, because you want to be seen as the best, you know, if you've got your issues with BBC, fine. You know, I don't share that view, but I did have an event 2 days after the referendum to discuss that at the referendum cafe. So I am interested in that, but I have a different view on it. So anyway, that's a digress. And then another one was she was attributed to a quote that wasn't her, but at the same time it was like somebody else said something, I don't know the full details, but somebody said something about Scotland and the UK wanting to be part of the people's vote. So that was a total like, Scotland and the UK are not the same thing or whatever, right? So, but she was an SNP member. So there's two people that are actually within the Yes camp, broadly, who got piled on. So David Leith from the Herald was kind of talking about this, saying this is ridiculous. You know, he gets a hell of a lot of abuse as well, and I think
he's been accused of being an MI5 shell.
Of course, and he's still like, you know, we've proven this. And it's just like,
I'm working at the Herald. That's alright, man.
He's double dip. He's moonlighting.
I know. I love the idea that the Herald is some sort of outreach hub for, like, you know, this. What's the listening one? It was the
8x6.
No, it was the. It's the one that's the listening to all your calls in the UK.
It was GCHQ.
That's the one, GCHQ. Yeah. So you worked for that anyway. So he was kind of talking about this, and I was like, this is really interesting, because I'm kind of starting to look at this stuff. And then I started looking, I mean, I don't follow these accounts, but I started looking at these accounts and I'm going, why are all the accounts got the same identifying qualities? Because they've all got similar sort of like bios that are like always a wee granny. It just wants independence for their kids, or independence now. If you add me to a list, you'll be blocked. And they've got these sort of similar qualities. So if you take away who's running them and just line up these sort of accounts, the patterns kind of the same, and it just kind of felt like either people that kind of, this is how they use the internet and that's fine, and I mean I can't prove this, and I don't profess to prove it, but I started a thread going, oh, this is really interesting, and folk were kind of engaging with it, and I'm kind of going, this is interesting because why are they following these same patterns? And they're all really semi-automated, so they were kind of all retweeting the same stuff. So whenever there was like a trend of news, so I'll use the one from last week, was they were trying to spread this information around them being busting actors from Manchester and London who happened to be Glaswegian women who work for an underpaid cleaning job and who went on strike. So they were trying to sort of discredit the strikes because of the links to Labour, but by the way, these are busting actors, which is very Trump's kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, for one, would the trade unions have that sort of money to buy in actors? And two, there must be 10,000 odd Glaswegian ladies from Manchester, London.
I could probably find the same number of cleaners in Wishy that would probably have. Do you want your day's wage to go and protest at the front? Like, and it would cost them less than the mid actors. Yeah. Definitely.
Aye, totally. It just like, they're busting up from Westminster, and it's just this sort of like this idea of Westminster as London's this monolithic beast, but London's actually, that's another matter. But yeah, all these sort of sleeper cell Glaswegian ladies from London and Manchester. Sorry, because I got pulled up. It was Manchester as well. But anyway, so like I'm just sort of looking at that, and then I tagged one, and then it fucking started, and they were like, "How dare you call us bots?" And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to respond to any of this because I think anything it's going to respond to is going to end up causing, it's a bit like it's a virus, it's going to cause a rash and it's going to keep going. And then David Leask asked me to write a piece of analysis alongside an article, which was Ben Nemo from the Atlantic Council. He had a look at some of the hashtag dissolve the union, and some of it was automated, and he just like described that. But the bottom line is we can't not acknowledge that Scotland's got a misinformation problem, because the reason why Scotland's got a misinformation problem is because we're highly diverse in the sense that we've got a country that's built up of people that want to be part of the UK and a country that wants to be independent, and we're 50-50 almost. So we are perfect for misinformation because we can be throwing abuse about things left, right and centre.
I would also say that like it's in the interest of Russian foreign policy, Scottish independence. So, like, I've seen evidence that was presented through, which kind of shows that there were Russian links to the independence.
Alex Salmond is taking money for Russia today, right? That's like, and actually, just moving that to aside just for a moment, it's like, I just pulled out some accounts. Had some guy tweeting me telling me he was going to kill himself unless I deleted the tweet, and it was getting all horrific. It was getting sort of weird, and I wrote this analysis, and then because I wrote the analysis for the Herald, that's when Wings Over Scotland stepped in, because it's like, who the fuck's this girl? I've never seen her before. I was like, to be honest, you've never seen me before because you only really like follow people that believe in the stuff you do. So
spend a lot of time in court, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever. And so I woke up in the morning and there was an article about me, an article in the loosest possible sense, which was a picture of my face that said I looked young. The fact that I had provided an analysis, but he'd extracted the word anal and went, "This smells like shite." Brilliant journalism.
Clever.
Yeah, clever. Especially when people say to him, "Oh, he's got a good analysis, so we can use that." He posted. He'd been on my LinkedIn because I'd seen somebody from Bath had been on my LinkedIn. He posted a link to my dad's accountant. I had a limited company with my dad for a couple of months whilst I was finishing my PhD up. I mean, that clearly meant that I've only ever earned 20 grand in my whole life, so therefore I'm just an unemployed student, which is nice. I like this idea that I'm young. I like this idea that I look young. There's a big thing about my glasses. I've got a big problem with my glasses, but that's a bit like school bullying. That's a bit like going, "Look at you, Specky."
Well, it's just an ad hominem attack.
Yeah.
The problem is, I mean, that happens. That's because of this, this anonymous background that people have got on Twitter. This protection that they've got. But you can just attack people for the way they physically look.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
but at least you've got the balls to put your name and face to the things that you're saying.
Yeah, and again, I'm being tentative, and actually they're kind of going, and there's people, real people, like who have got their names and stuff like that on it. Kate at David Leask, who have blocked me now. We've never had a conversation, but they are like vehemently like angry at me because I picked a couple of accounts and I bullied them. Apparently, I compared accounts and I was like, I'm just pointing it out, and I said it looks interesting, and actually, if I didn't have anything on it, I don't know why I keep getting people getting in touch with me going, yeah, I feel the same, but I don't want to say it on public because I don't want to get the same as what you get, because I feel like you got a pretty heavy going. What's really important though is that because One Swings Over Scotland, he's got a big reach, he's got a big audience. Once that happened, then that's when people started tweeting me for 5 days about how I'm this and that, right? 5 days, 6 days. A lot of it was in my parents. A lot of it was they posted information about my parents' wedding certificate because that's in public. I mean, it's a fact that as a woman, we won't go for what I actually wrote because they didn't read what I wrote, because they don't subscribe to the Herald, because they don't pay money for the mainstream media. So they just felt like it was an opportunity. Remembering that I voted yes, I was involved in the yes campaign. So, I mean, it's like, they finally got me offline, and the reason why they got me offline was because I was going to electric fields, and I didn't want to leave my social media up and running without being monitored.
Back with 800 messages.
Aye, and then they're going down the route, my parents and my mum and dad don't deserve that shit. You know, it's like, come on to fuck, come at me, fair enough, right? But my mum and dad got nothing to do with this. Get a fucking grip. I mean, you're so far down this weird internet tunnel now that you're like, okay, so basically my point was, caller, that Scottish politics has a weird darkness to its social media that's impacting online discourse. And I've just spent a week getting abuse for asking that question.
Yeah,
so you're certainly proving my point. You've got a problem.
The thing is, we actually have precedent to show that, in right-wing America, they use scripts with certain language. So even if it wasn't a bot, the fact that people will use the same language, you have to question that, because we've seen we have proof that it's actual. We can prove that it's happened before. So why would you not question if it was happening again, if it starts to look like it?
Yeah, well, so this is the thing that we could be doing more, looking into more. It's the same language, and it's the same pattern when it comes to misogyny, right? So it's this sort of kind of, again, back to the old dad, this sort of thing about, right, so I've got a couple of tweets, but some of them are like this, where are we? It's like, random with a picture of a lion and a rampant lion with a cross. I would like to humbly suggest Dr. Jennifer Jones checks the back of her head for buttons. Haw Jones, get a bloody life, you strange and sad creature. #dissolve the union. And then sharing a link to a blog post, which is literally a man rambling about how I look young and I've got big glasses. And that's a different blog post. But you're like, that's a blog post in response to it. So there's this kind of little kind of click stuff. And it's like, okay, right, that's fine. But there's just sort of like, I became a little bit of a meme for them. And there was a account, Mr. Malky, which... Oh, it's fucking, it's mad. It actually, there's a little bit of me loves it. Loves it, man. Loves it. It's this doctor, and they put the doctors in quotes, and it's like, oh, apparently she's a doctor. No, man, I'm a doctor. It's not like apparently I am. I know. But then one person wrote to my university, UWS, to ask if they'd take my PhD away, which is fucking brilliant. I was like,
I hope the university wrote back. No.
Well, I'm a pal with a guy who runs a social media account who we had some good chat about that. But yeah, it's funny, they're tweeting UWS going, let's get rid of our PhD and then she can't say things about us. And it's like, right, how do we have this conversation then? Do you want me to have it in private or do you want to have it openly? And it's like, oh, you call me a bot. I didn't call you a bot. There is bots out there. And Ben Nemo pointed, there was a research that Alan Smith commissioned. So SNP funded research this week pointed out that there is a problem in it. Right?
SNP Yunzo.
Yeah.
Aye.
But the best fucking part of it was the irony feedback loop of the people tweeting Scotterbot, which is quite a good name for a thing. So they're tweeting the Scotterbot thing, which is run from Alan Smith's office, and they're sort of saying things like, your bot thinks I'm a bot. Wah ha 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 ha. It's like Bellingcat and Dr. Jennifer Jones all over again, but this time it's friendly fire. And then another one would go.
So they're slagging off Bellingcat.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, That's pick a fight you're probably not going to win.
I know, because but or not, again, this man's here, he's got a face which is the anonymous mask with a saltire. Bot or not puts me at 78% chance of being a bot. Thankfully, Bot Sentinel rates me at 9%, but I don't view my tweets like that, and occasionally I interact with Russians, so this is poor habit for you, right? And another one here, this is the best one. This is a SNP logo with Aberdeen FC badge in the middle.
Well, I'm not a fan of it.
We can share that commonality. Right, saying 99.2% bot, it's rubbish. Now they think they're diversive. What are they up to? Who they? This is the SNP funny thing. But it's like, I think the best people to address it is not me within this context, because I don't really want to spend my life fucking getting blog posts written about me, you know, as much as I kind of feel like we need to kind of get this out in the open and stuff like that. But what's really interesting is Alan Smith stepped up to, they put some money into, got a researcher who's got time to do this, who specialises this, and then built a website around Scotterbot, and now he's getting abused for it. However, he is SNP. He's done more for the SNP in the last couple of years than most, you know. So let him deal with that, and let their brains blow out the fact that they're going, oh shit, this thing thinks a bot. There's something wrong with the system, not the fact that your behaviour online is making you look like a bot.
I think definitely the people who address this in Scotland are the SNP, because it's largely SNP supporters it's coming from. I think that they've waited for too long to do it, because obviously it's a difficult thing for them to do, but it's something that needs to be done soon. And also, like, realistically, see if you're out there listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I don't agree with that, I think that, you know, there's not a problem, I think that the Yes movement's inclusive. Go and fucking look at it for like a day and you'll see that it's not. And also, if you want to win, you're going to have to fucking cut this shit out.
I know, and set an example. That's the thing. It's back to what I was saying about the quality of online discourse needs to happen, right? We need to have these conversations. If you think Scotland hasn't got that problem and you want to actually just attack me because Scotland doesn't have this problem, then you're part of the problem, because I am as much as a voice here in this as much as anyone else. And if you can knock me offline for a couple of days and I'll just go to a field and dress like Spider-Man, but I'll be back. You know, it's not this thing where you think, oh, well, that's what's got the critics away. Let's be really precious and fragile about our identity. No, if Scotland wants to be strong, they need to stop being so fucking, get so offended. Get so fucking offended if somebody doesn't agree with you about something that's actually wanting Scotland to be better. You want Scotland to be good.
Yeah. Well, I think myself, Jerry, and one of our closest mates, JJ, like, so all three of us have different political party alignments. All three of us support Yes. All three of us regularly argue about stuff to do with Scottish independence because it's perceived in different ways and it maybe attacks one of our particular biases, right? That when we're attacking our own, firstly, it's really easy for the other side to win the next vote when everybody who's voting yes is more worried about who's fucking more yesy than the other yeses.
It's total hipster, like it reflects.
I was yes back in the day.
I was yes back when it was no.
No, that's it. I'm getting the vibe of, like, you know, being a woman on the internet, and if you like football and if you like games or you like digital, but if you then they want you to fucking name every fucking game you've ever been to and every game you've played, and you're not allowed in the gang unless you've actually done it. And I feel there's a little bit of that ethos as well. It's like, you're not as yes as me because you've not been to marches. I don't go to national marches because I don't march under a flag.
Because that's my own. Like you that are shouting about yes people that you're like, how come I've never seen you? Because right now you have attacked me on the internet.
It's scary. Leave me alone.
You're not the person that I want to be around.
Yeah, I want to be Spider-Man. Leave me alone.
As much as I'm sure it's like fun and all that, it does look a bit Nuremberg for me, like.
I'm not, again, and that was another thing they picked up on it, because I'd seen the Dundee one. I thought, right, the thing is, we need to have more than 50% of people voting yes to get an independence referendum, right?
Yeah.
If you're marching through Dundee and shouting at people who are a little bit scared of you, then that's not really going to happen. But then somebody said to me,
is that not how you win hearts and minds?
Fucking chocolates, right? What they should do is, instead of organising a march and paying for fucking train tickets, everyone who wants to vote yes buy a box of chocolates and send it to some cunt who's voting no.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we're letting in it saying you should vote yes. We're all dead nice.
Yeah.
that would be.
Don't
the
just
best.
shout, call them a yoon. It's like right. Okay, so there's
Half
two
a pint
things.
of chocolate.
Are you in this because you're part of a gang and a tribe, and that's nice. Again, we've talked about tribalism and stuff like that. It's nice to feel part of a side and all that, and you've got the other side, and that's fine. But then that's quite selfish in the sense of like that's me part of my group. But the bottom line, the thing I always remember is we didn't get fucking independence, and we needed 6% more to get independence, right?
Yeah.
So if you're turning on your own, then don't take for granted the 45%, because for a lot of people, my parents included, who Wings Over Scotland took I mean, for fuck's sake, my mum was lovely, right? My dad, I had to phone my dad and explain the fucking internet to him, because he doesn't use this shit, I'm going to talk about the dads.
I don't want to alarm you. I believe you might be a yoon. I've just been checking it.
But they voted yes, but they won't vote yes now. We're not voting yes now. They're fucking mental.
Yeah.
Stand outside, see if you're a Celtic fan or a Rangers fan, stand outside your club, right, with a table full of Buckfast, right, and say, if you vote for yes, I'll give you a free bottle of Buckfast. 6%, easy. Easy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, engage, but
With Buckfast
engage with Buckfast.
and chocolate.
Yeah,
So-
Buckfast and chocolate.
And yeah, that's just an exact illustration of how counterproductive. That's directly counterproductive. There's two people who were going to vote yes who now wouldn't.
Who now think it's like there's a sort of madness to it, which there was the doubt and they had. I talked my parents into voting yes, and but if everybody talked their parents into voting yes, then that's a percentage, right? And then you've got that. But I don't think. I'm not a polling person, whatever. But I think the kind of falling out has disastrous consequences for the concept of a independence too. I hate the idea of Indie 2, because it's like the shitty second film.
Indie 2.
It doesn't have the same budget, and everybody's a bit
Indie
tired.
harder.
Aye, Indie harder. and nobody's bothered changing the posters on the window, so it's a bit tired and faded, and the stickers are peeling off. But you're like, you've got the guy who sells flags outside Hampden is making a mint, so thank you.
He's been doing it for 35 years, just like I shift a couple of saltires out of town Scotland playing. He's just like, this is fucking amazing!
I know, he's like, I got my son, he quit his job and he's joined as a family business, you know what I mean? It's like...
Brian,
It's a limited company.
Tim makes the word fucking yes on you on his flags.
Two.
It's not the Wings Over Scotland edition.
Yeah,
No,
oh
well,
my
that's
God.
the thing though, so one of the dangers what we're talking about in the whole journalism thing and everything that we're talking about tonight, Wings Over Scotland are respected in some fields certainly as being a online bringer of news, a truth teller, a journalist, someone who fucking fights for the right of the fucking yes movement and fucking, but they're also attacking someone who supports yes and who's just saying, guys, these are coming across as bots because you're all using the same language, you've got the same fucking
We've
pictures.
seen Bella Caledonia taking grief, man, for saying a lot of the same stuff.
About literally within a couple of days of the interview that we had with Mike, Wings Over Scotland had a go at him about not being fucking yes enough.
So here's a call.
Simply the yes.
What's his name?
Mike.
No.
Stu Campbell.
Stu Campbell. If you want to come on the show and sit here and talk to us,
By
you're very welcome to do it.
Or if you want to just call it in, you can do that as well. We have
Yeah.
those functions. I mean, you don't. Jenny's not saying, do you want to come round and fucking sit with us in the room? So that'd be kind of weird.
But what I mean is, you've got a right to reply. You want to come here and you want to explain your thought process and defend yourself, then we're right here and you can sit and you can chat to us the same way that we're chatting to Jen and you can put forward.
I'm saying we've spoken to Mike as well. In fact, it's only fair.
Things as you've seen him. So we're here if you ever want to come and talk to us.
Yeah. Right, I'm aware of time because I want to get a bottle of wine before the shop shuts.
Listen, it's been a really good chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's been really good, and it's really good to know there's a podcast that's homegrown that's doing this stuff. And I'm going to go home and listen to lots of episodes, I think. Cause,
I wouldn't recommend listening to lots of one sitting.
It could be my getting ready to go out.
There's a guy in Australia who listens to us on his commute to work.
Yeah. Hello.
Why? But fair play to him.
Good on you.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So thanks very much, Jen.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye bye.